Hello,
Welcome to another episode of Arias. This is Barry.
I'm Rima.
And in today's episode, the other day actually, I was asking Rima about like feedback and giving feedback. And so we thought, we're in a certain phase in life where we value feedback. And it's not something that everybody's good at, including ourselves, which is why, like Rima and I were exploring ideas on how to better give feedback.
Yeah, better give and better receive.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like I'm terrible at giving feedback, and I've been given feedback at how terrible I am at giving and receiving feedback. So I think it's very topical.
Exactly. Obviously, we're not experts, which is
Not at all.
which is why we had to do some research. And I think it's always a good idea, to chat with your friends about it and to discuss ideas on how you can better give feedback and receive feedback.
Yeah, I think I think the conversations that we were having cuts across so many aspects of our life, like at work, our personal life, and with friends and family as well.
Yeah.
So we thought it would be good to learn together.
Yeah. Exactly. I think one of the things is that people don't really value feedback because they don't understand the importance of it. But it's actually quite important, especially if you're trying to better or improve the relationship, whether it's like work, personal, or platonic.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that doesn't happen frequently enough, that when it does happen, most people get defensive, myself included. And
Guilty.
so I think it is one of those things, as we have conversations about how EQ can be honed, I think even giving and receiving, this ability to give and receive feedback effectively can be honed.
Yeah.
And so I've seen the value of it firsthand, but it's so uncomfortable that I think
For
that's
sure.
why I don't do it
For sure.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like soft skills, which is basically EQ and emotional intelligence, that is what helps people grow in the career path. And one of our episodes previously was about, career development. And we often forget that in addition to having the hard skills, you really do need to hone in on your soft skills.
Yeah. I think one aspect is definitely, like you said, the effect or the impact that good feedback can have on people and yourself, because it's in a system. Nobody lives in isolation. And I think the other thing is my relationships, work and like personal and professional, have gotten better when I've been able to have honest conversations with people about how I was feeling about a certain situation and or how I was made to feel and what we can do going forward. A lot of my friendships have become stronger because we've been able to have those hard conversations. And even at work, I feel like once you're able to be vulnerable with people in a certain way, you're able to have more honest conversations.
For sure. And it's just like improvement in all aspects, right? Because once you're able to build that trust, I feel like giving feedback and receiving feedback builds trust.
For sure.
Yeah, and having more trust is what helps you move forward and make progress in that relationship.
Yeah. When at least for me, I've noticed in the last few years, when I think a conversation is going to go really badly and I'm scared to give the feedback, and then it has not, it feels like me and this person have gotten closer.
For sure. Especially if you're like have a constructive discussion about like feedback, then it feels like there's like a weight lifted off.
Yeah.
And it feel like you're just like one step closer.
Yeah, you feel lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With that being said, one of the things that I read online is that people say the reason, you would want to give feedback, especially in a work context, is that you're doing it with the intention to better the relationship between you and your working partner, in addition to bringing more value to the team. Because once you give feedback and it's positive and they make progress, like the value that it brings to the team is huge. It's not just between the personal or the working relationship that you have.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot, like I said, people don't work in isolation and they don't work in silos. You work in a pod.
Right.
And so the effect of a good working relationship and subsequently being able to have honest conversations with each other is huge.
Yeah.
I think at the workplace, one book that I've read, or like what I've practiced that has really helped, is Kim Scott's notion of radical candor. And when I was talking to my friends about this book, some of them were really against it because they think it's a way to be obnoxious and give feedback.
Interesting.
But I don't think that's the case. I think radical candor works because it talks about the importance of developing a relationship with someone to be able to give them candid feedback.
Sure.
And I think I see the value in that, because if you just say to like a person X that you did this and this makes me feel like this, can you please do this? It's so transactional that I don't think it lands as much as, hey, if me and this other person have a relationship, it has a more deep impact when you give feedback. So I really like that. And I know it's like in Silicon Valley, it has a lot of like opposers, because a lot of people think it's a way to be a jerk, but I don't think that's the case.
I think it's just the way you see it, right? Like if you see it as like a way to hone in on your skills and improve, then you're not going to see it as like...
Yeah. And it's to your point of intention. I think if the other person knows that you're coming from a place of positive intent,
right,
and you're not just trying to like blame them for something that's gone south, I think that helps.
No, for sure. So yeah, one of the things about giving feedback is to think about the intention of doing it, right? Like I think some people sometimes just give feedback for the sake of making them feel better. Maybe like that person annoyed them, or like they were just in a bad mood and they're just finding something to blame on. I think obviously that's not the right intention to give feedback. I think every time you give feedback, you need to stop and think to yourself, okay, is this actually going to help improve any relationship at all? And if it is, then great. Like that is a good motivator to have that conversation.
Yeah. I think a lot of people also don't give feedback because they're trying to protect the other person. Or they're trying to be empathetic.
They
and
think
not,
that they...
or you're trying to be empathetic to, oh, this person's not doing this because of ABC. And so you sort of don't give feedback. And I think the book also covers this. It's called Ruinous Empathy, where you empathize so much that it's actually ruining your relationship with this person because you're not helping them be better.
Yeah, for sure. I think sometimes like you gotta like take a step back and see from a bigger picture like what the impact is. I understand like you're trying to protect them by holding back on the feedback, but actually you're doing them a disservice. Yeah, for sure. Aligned. With that being said, I think like we did some research on some frameworks and structures on how we can better give feedback, because this is our journey of wanting to learn
really bad.
how to be better.
I'm really avoidant as a person, and so if I feel like if I need to give feedback to a person, I just run away.
That's funny. I think we spoke about this when we first moved in together, and we're both like a little bit like that. But I do think that I've gotten better with giving feedback, especially when I feel like it's going to add value, whether it's to the relationship or to the working culture.
Yeah.
Speaking of culture, actually, do you think that culture, in terms of like where we're from, makes or impacts the way feedback is given?
I think so. I think a lot of times, like I grew up in India, and I think there's this notion that elders know better. And so I think that's a huge part of how feedback is given. It's just like, hey, I'm elder than you, so I know better, and so I'm giving you this. And I feel like when that happens, and I think that translates to the workplace as well, a lot of managers in India feel like they can be really candid with you to give you feedback because they're like, we're older than you, so we know better, so here's this feedback. But I don't think a very good job is done in terms of developing physiological safety or psychological safety. I think they just say it because they think you should assume that they're coming from a place of good intent,
or they think that that's valuable information for you,
right? But it doesn't really show. At least when I've got feedback when I was working in India, I wasn't really given an explanation as to how it's better for XYZ, either my relationship with my coworkers or a particular project or anything, or like in that sense. So I think the context was not clear and the framing was not very good. And so that is my feedback. I was also way younger when I was working in India. And so the feedback was very tactical. Like, just do this. But I think the context of it was missing.
Right.
And I don't think continuous feedback was a concept, at least when I was working in India. I think a lot of my feedback was about performance of metrics of a project. It wasn't about EQ. And so there's this, and I think I think the culture, like what happens at home translates to the workplace.
For sure.
What was your experience?
Yeah, I would say the same. I think in Asian culture, or even though I grew up in South Africa, I think my home and what I was exposed to is still traditionally Asian. And so, feedback is given in the same way, where they think that they're helping you by giving you direct, candid feedback without processing or filtering, to kind of keep in mind how it might make you feel. And so I think like that, it was quite a contrast, because in Western culture they value how the other person might feel with the feedback that you give them. And so I think that I had a little bit of an advantage when I was exposed to the Western culture way of giving feedback. And so when I was in Taiwan for a bit and I gave feedback, I think it was received a lot better, because they're not used to that sort of consideration, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was refreshing.
Yeah, I think so. But at the same time, some people took it in a way that's like I wasn't being completely transparent or honest, because they might feel like I'm beating around the bush.
Oh, okay. And they want you to be more direct.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like it's a middle ground depending on the audience.
Yeah, I would also say like the way it's done is very different. I think I might see it from like a Western lens. When I see how my friends in Taiwan do it might come across as more passive aggressive. But I don't think that that's the intention, right? But it's just the way of approaching feedback is slightly different.
Yeah. So I think culture definitely plays a part.
For sure.
I think I see it at my workplace too. When I talk to say Asians or Indians, I feel like in conversation as well, we're more direct and blunt than I would if I was talking to like a non-Indian or non-Asian.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true, actually. Yeah, and I think a big part of what we'll be discussing today is how feedback is not like a general rule that can apply to every single person that you interact with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you need to pick your battles.
Yeah.
Someone, one of my managers gave me the advice that who's giving you feedback is also important.
Yeah.
And you need to take it with a grain of salt. Not
For
all
sure.
feedback is valuable.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. With that being said, we did have some frameworks. One of the ones that comes to mind is not really a framework, but more so what to keep in mind when giving feedback. And it's called the 3 C's: concrete, constructive, and caring. Concrete means making the feedback specific and precise. So giving an exact example or a specific example,
Yeah.
and what you were feeling, what the context was, that helps a person, go back to that particular situation.
Yeah.
So that, we're both on the same page about what was happening.
Yeah.
Then constructive is emphasizing solutions and development instead of blame. I think that's really important. I feel like often feedback is not taken well because people think that it's a sign of blame.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And so I think rather than emphasizing what they did wrong, more so give or encourage ways that it can be better handled.
Yeah. I think an issue with that, especially in the workplace, is that and we do retros after every sprint, right? But I feel like we gloss over what went well very quickly, and then we focus on what went wrong or what the challenges were.
Yeah.
And I can see how you're trying to solve a problem, but I feel like we gloss over the things that went well very quickly. So when you're giving feedback, you're only thinking of the times that something has gone wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
And we were discussing this earlier. It's like, I feel like to create an environment that is safe, I think you have to be consistently good at giving positive feedback so that when negative feedback is needed, it doesn't feel like you're giving good feedback, like the sandwich method, which is like
the sandwich method, which is you give someone a compliment to tell them what they did well,
right,
then slide in what you're actually giving them feedback
right.
about and what you want them to change, and then end with a compliment again, or a positive note, because you don't want them to leave feeling bad. But that is it seems disingenuous.
Yes, very insincere, because it feels like the positive side of things are just you squeezing things in just to make them feel better.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't feel as genuine.
Yeah, and I think when I've been given feedback like that, I fully gloss over the good bits. Yeah.
So then to your point, I think it's super critical to be able to give positive feedback throughout your entire working relationship.
Yeah.
So that they know that, you're typically, encouraging and you see their efforts and their good work.
Yeah.
It's just that when in the event that you do need to give negative feedback, they know that you're coming from a good place.
Yeah. Another thing about like the framework and the 3 C's, I completely agree with that. It's hard to implement. I think the other thing is, when do you do it?
Feedback at the right time definitely contributes to the feedback being effective. I think you can give feedback, but whether the feedback is effective, I think there are a lot of factors that come into play, and we'll get to that at the end of this discussion. But yeah, the third one is caring, of the 3 C's, and I think this one's super important because going back to our second point, which is making sure that you give constructive feedback consistently. Caring is more so like you caring about them and their growth, and you want to see them better.
Yeah.
As the motivator of having that discussion, rather than making them feel like, oh, okay, you're just annoyed by whatever they did, and so that's why you're giving them that feedback.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I think was like a good 3 pointer framework that I think can be easily implemented.
With regard to care, I think my philosophy has always been treat people how you want to be treated. But someone recently gave me the perspective of how she started giving feedback in a way that shows the other person that she's taking into consideration how they would react and feel. And so I thought that was an interesting way to show care.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah. And that also goes back to what we were saying, that, feedback it's not a one rule that applies to all. It's not one size fits all sort of situation. Like, you do need to consider that person's feelings and how they might react, how they might receive your feedback. Obviously, it's good to have some sort of framework, so don't get us wrong. Like, the framework that we'll get into is like a good way to start, but just remember that when you're giving that framework, who is receiving that feedback? Yeah,
to your point of frameworks to give folks, and when do you give feedback, right? I think the framework that I resonate with is situation, behavior, and impact, where you talk specifically about a particular instance where someone's behavior made you feel like there was scope for improvement, and then you talk about what that impact is. So you're giving them very concrete, constructive examples and showing that you care.
Correct. Because that is important.
That is very important. And so there was this time at work when my CTO, we had a org, like we had a reorg. And so a lot of people were not used to working with each other or not familiar with each other's styles. And we're a pretty lean startup, so you can't, there's no escaping that. Like if you have a bad relationship or working relationship with someone, you can't go to someone else and be like, I'll get my work done through them.
Right.
There's not a lot of redundancy. So you have to have a decent relationship with them. And so my CTO felt like she was like, this is a skill that we all have to develop. We're all really terrible at it. And so for a whole week, she made us do situation behavior impact, where we had to either get on a call with someone or Slack a person, but give them feedback about specific instances where we thought there was areas of improvement. And it's so uncomfortable to do it.
Yeah.
And part of it is like we were doing it because it's an exercise, but I think as you do it, it does become better. So I definitely think giving feedback is muscle.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have like the same framework. I think like this framework is pretty like gold standard, I think I want to say, by keeping it like objective and professional. So some examples that we have using this framework is for situation, let's say defining the when and where. So an example would be during the client presentation yesterday, etc., etc. The behavior part is you're describing what specific action was observed. So during the client's presentation yesterday, you interrupted the client 3 times while they were asking questions. So that is the actual behavior that happened. The impact of that, with you explaining how the behavior affected the team or the project, is, for example, this made the client hesitant to share their concerns, and as a result we lost clarity on their requirements. So I think like this is like a perfect example of using this SBI, or situation behavior impact feedback. I think it's very like factual, so it's very objective, so it's not as if you're like adding in your like subjective
You're
feelings.
just annoying.
Exactly, like you're just annoying, you're so annoying, like you did that and now we don't have what we need. It's more so just like removing yourself from the situation, explaining what happened, and then helping them see what happened so that they can improve for the next time.
Have you been in a situation where you've given feedback like this and it's not been taken well?
I think so. I think like, as you said, receiving feedback is also a skill, and I don't think that everybody is good at it, including myself. Like I think I'm still guilty of sometimes, depending on who it is, don't receive it well, right? But I think it's important to be open ears when receiving feedback, regardless of who it is. You can decide what you do with that feedback after, right? But when you're giving them feedback, I think it's very easy for people just to be like, oh, okay, this is someone I don't respect, so when they're giving me feedback, I'm just gonna close my ears and not listen. I think it's also a skill to be able to receive feedback and listen actively, and then decide later what you're gonna do with that information.
I recently at work gave someone feedback, and even though they were saying that they said the words that they're thankful or grateful that I'm giving them this feedback, and they appreciate it, their body language was not at all what that was. Like, and so they were saying the words like, oh, thank you for giving me this feedback, I will reflect like on this and along those lines, but the body language was immediately like shut down. And it was
like, what specifically from their body language did you
like? And after that conversation happened, like throughout the rest of the meeting, this person did not like. They were super serious. There was no sort of. I tried like trying to make jokes or trying to like make light of certain other conversations. This person was not having it, and so demeanor was very like standoffish.
What did you do then in that situation?
So I've been having this issue with this person where I've had to give feedback constantly, and my issue is that they say that they're receiving it well, but their body language is not.
Right.
And in the work, it's not being reflected. So,
interesting.
So I have to keep doing it.
Yeah.
But I'm not seeing the impact. And so it's also awkward for me because this person, I used to be very friendly with this person. And since I've started giving this feedback, I feel like they've sort of pulled away.
Right.
And so it's really awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have to give this, I'm mentoring this person. So every week I need to give this person feedback.
I see.
And this person has gone from being very bubbly and jovial in our conversations to being very, hello, do you have any agenda points for me? Like that.
I see.
And then I'll give the feedback because I have to, and I'm also like building this muscle as a mentor. And this person is like, yes, thank you very much for this, but there's no
like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. Let me try that for next time.
There's no like, there is, they say the words, but it's not there in the behavior.
I see.
It's like they know they have to say the words.
But I guess you should give them a chance.
Yeah, and I am. So I don't know how this is going. Right. This has been only 2 weeks into this
so I guess
mentorship.
We'll see.
We will see.
We'll circle back.
We will circle back. Yeah, but it's awkward, dude.
It is awkward. And to your point, right? Like it's a very uncomfortable conversation to have. I think for this example, because you're a work relationship, it doesn't impact you mentally. But I can imagine this, if this, say, was a friend relationship or a friendship that you had with someone and they didn't take it well, I can see how that friendship could potentially fall apart, right? Because of it. But then again, right, like I think at the end of the day, you do want to see the best, and you can only hope that it lands well, and you can only do your best in trying to do it in a way that you think they will receive well, and it's the best you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just keep doing what you're doing, especially because you're the mentor of this person.
I think this person also got defensive, and I'm not this person's like manager, right? So they asked their manager why I was giving feedback.
Oh, interesting.
And so it's also like,
did you speak to their manager about it?
Yeah, and I think their manager did like a good job explaining to this person how feedback doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's giving the feedback as long as they have enough context for giving the feedback, right? It's not like I woke up one day and I was like, let me just randomly give feedback. This person and I work on a program together, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it is tough.
It is tough, and like you said, it's a muscle to build. But I think once you do it often enough, and provided that you're doing it in a very objective way, using the frameworks that we just discussed, you know, I think like it's nothing that you can control. Like you can't really control how people react to the feedback that you give. Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's funny now that I think about it. I actually do have a situation at work where there is an engineer that I work with, and I think he is great. Like they are super good at like their work, but I think it's one of the feedbacks I would have for them is the way they explain something. So as a project manager, I feel like my time is very limited. So I like going to people asking for summaries. But when I ask for a summary from this person, they'll give me like an essay. And it defeats the whole purpose. But because they own a particular...
It's their baby.
Yeah. And because they own, I can't really go to other people to ask for the most accurate information. I know that this person has the most accurate information. I think I'm struggling to... Because previously I said to them, hey, can you give me like 3 key takeaways? Their 3 key takeaways, they'll give it to me, but then they'll add on all of this context. And I think like they're coming from a place of, I want to give you context so you know what's happening, which I appreciate. But more often than not, right? Like, I think it's just tough when, you know, when I'm asking for like a 3-point feedback or takeaway, they give me 10 minutes breakdown of what's happening. And yeah, I think I don't know what to do in terms of how to give feedback to this engineer. What would you do?
Yeah, I've been in a similar situation where engineers, they love what they're creating.
Yes, they're very passionate.
They're very passionate about it. So I also don't want to like rain on their parade.
Yes, exactly.
But also I need to be like, let's get on with
exactly.
it.
Especially when you're in a meeting.
Yeah.
And you're just like asking them and you just need like them to give you yes, no answers or like, you know, 1 sentence answer. But they give you like a whole essay.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to stop them.
Right. Because they're so passionate and it's not like they're coming from a place of malice, right? So I've been in this exact situation.
What did you do?
I think there were 2 things for me. One is when they were explaining the technical bit of it, I almost was like, so what? Like I was like, what? How does this affect the actual business impact? What is the impact? Like they kept talking to me about the issues with whatever they were working on. And I was like, I genuinely couldn't understand what the point of this was. Right. One is that I'm not understanding the impact. Right. The other, then the feedback that I gave this person is like, hey, you're so technically savvy and you're so in the weeds of it that when you talk to someone like me who's more business facing, I don't understand what the impact of that is. So if you're, you should tell me like, hey, I'm working on this problem and it's going to take longer than I anticipated. So maybe we're not going to able to push this production release that the client is going to get or the customer is going to get in so and so time. It's going to be delayed as opposed to I need more help on this. So I need more people, like throw more people on the problem so that we can solve it faster. Or it's just like, the system that I'm working on has to talk to another system and there's a lot of friction. So the other team needs to work on it. Like, which one is it, right? So the feedback that I gave is like, tell me what the point of this is.
Right. Interesting. I think like I previously attempted, right? But I think they still use the same way. So then what I learned is that there are multiple engineers working on something similar. But this person is the owner, but I know that other people always join his calls. So then I know that I can just go to that person for like a 3-pointer takeaway. And so then that's what I do. And if I do need to clarify, then I go and ping this other person, this engineer.
To the point of like engineers talking about what they're working on and this, like the other feedback I gave this person is, one, I don't understand the impact and how I can help you.
Right.
The other thing is like we only have like this a meeting is like say 30 minutes.
Yep.
And if you're talking to me for 20 minutes, I don't have the bandwidth to talk to all these other folks. So I have give them feedback about brevity, about what they're giving information on, and I'm like, hey, if we need a separate call or we can like have a separate discussion, we table this for later once everyone's done with their updates. Maybe we can circle back to that. And I think that's why I don't think it's a one-time conversation.
For sure.
It's a frequent conversation.
And I remember you told me this before, like sometimes giving feedback, the first time it's not going to land. It takes, what did you say?
7 times.
On average 7 times.
Yeah, love that for us.
Yep. And I think maybe perhaps that's what I need to do. So that was one of the examples I think that I need to continue working on. So I think going forward, maybe I'll just try to say, hey, let's try to give 3 key pointers.
Maybe you can tell them what the trouble that you're facing is. Like if they give you such dense content, you can tell them why that's difficult for you to consume, and then they'll think about how to word it in a way that's better for you.
I don't think it's the fact that I don't understand it.
No, it's like the volume of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it's more so he thinks that all of that information is relevant. But to me, I don't believe that it's all relevant. And so it's just our definition of what is a summary is slightly different.
Yeah.
So what he thinks might be important isn't important to me.
Yeah. So much of feedback is subjective.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, you can give that feedback and you can say, hey, I need a summary, but what is a summary?
Yeah, what is a summary?
To you.
Correct.
To me, a summary could be like 1-word answers.
Yeah.
You know.
This is a very meta problem.
Yep. Yeah. So these are like actually really good and real examples in the workplace. Are there examples in like the personal space for you?
Yeah, in relationships, platonic or romantic, I feel like when I receive feedback, I either get emotional, and so the other person thinks I'm hurt, but that's just how for me, if I'm not in an emotional range of 1 to 10, from a 4 to 7, I'm fine. But if I'm overwhelmed or underwhelmed, it's just tears.
Yes.
I could be really happy and I would be crying. I'd be really angry and I'd be crying. So my thing is I get emotional, and so I think it's and then other people get scared of giving me feedback, or I get defensive.
And everybody's guilty of this, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody has like some sort of self-confidence and ego that we do want to protect. But so it's also like a work in progress for everybody to kind of like set aside our ego and set aside our defensiveness and just listen.
Yeah. One thing in my personal life I've realized I do is, as opposed to workplace you have to move at a certain pace to get to a certain like completion of a program, for instance, right? So your feedback needs to be timely.
Right.
But in your personal relationships, at least I'm guilty of doing this, I wait very long to give feedback, because I think this is the part of ruinous empathy where I'm like, oh, this person has so much going on and that's why they're behaving like this. Or I know the history of this person and maybe that's why they're behaving like this. So I wait for really long. But the issue with that is it gets to a point where I'm really fried.
Right.
And so when I give the feedback, it's like I'm already to a point where I'm like so annoyed.
Right.
Or upset.
So
by
the
something.
way that it comes across, or the
It's
way
very blunt.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things is that, giving feedback is one thing, but whether the feedback is effective, as in whether your feedback landed and they're going to take action, I think also it depends on a lot of things. And to your point, timeliness is a big one, right?
Yeah.
Especially when, let's say we have this like super heated conversation. Sometimes talking about or giving feedback in the moment in a heated conversation is also not good.
Yeah, because no one's going to be objective about it.
Right. Because in that moment, emotions kind of take over and no one's really logical. So yeah, that's also not good. In addition to what you were saying, leaving it for too long when it's not fresh in both people's minds anymore, it's also not good. I think I'm more guilty of giving feedback in a heated moment.
Very quickly.
Very quickly, because I kind of want to get that conversation over and done with, rather than,
Fester.
Yes, festering. So I think both, are valid. I think a good rule of thumb is probably like 48 to 72 hours, just like, 2 to 3 days once it's happened, or within a week, I think, at least, just when, it's still fresh in both people's minds or whoever's involved in that conversation.
Yeah. I was in a relationship once, and the way we fought was very different, in the sense that I sort of, in a fight, I kind of shut down and I need to like think about things and then process and then come back. But the person that I was dating was very much, like we need to solve this problem in this conversation. And I was like, nope, see you tomorrow.
That's so funny, because I'm on the opposite end where I'm like that.
Yeah.
And I dated someone who wanted to come back to it later after they've processed. But then to me, I was just like, you don't care about this relationship enough for you to want to talk about it right now? You want to sleep on it? Let's take this outside.
Yeah. I'm the opposite, where I'm like, we'll circle back in 2 to 3 weeks and discuss this.
Much to be learned.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like a sweet spot is within a week, or just enough to show the other person, because it's not just about you, right? Like, yes, you do need time to process, but the other person might feel like you're not thinking about it. So I think just making it clear to the other person, hey, like, I need time to process, maybe we can come back to this later, so that the other person, in their mind is like, oh, okay, they still care about it and they want to talk about it. Yeah. It's not like we're just brushing it under the rug.
Yeah. The other thing with my friends, I feel like the thing I do is like I maybe come up with the worst case scenario of how a conversation is going to go.
You do that.
And so, thank you. And then I'm scared to give them feedback because of it. But then I can think of so many examples where I've dreaded having a conversation with someone about something, and it's been like a non-issue.
Yeah.
They were just like, yeah, that
Seriously.
makes sense, and then and it's like, wow,
It's so much of it is like in your head.
head.
Yeah, for real. So yeah, it is a muscle. You just got to build it,
Yeah.
strengthen it.
Correct.
Yeah. So we were thinking about how to apply this framework SBI into like the different areas of our life. So we've done like work, we've done like platonic, we've done relationship, right? I think what I saw like that I can summarize for everyone is that, you know how I was saying, yes, there's a framework, but you need to cater it to
The audience.
Yes, the audience and the different relationships. So I had some examples that I thought would be good to go through. So the first one is the work relationship. The focus, I think, should be on performance improvement, clear expectations, and professional growth. So like be specific and timely on providing feedback shortly after an event or using concrete examples. So going back to our point on like the 3 C's. And then use the what if technique. I think this one has been super effective for me, especially. Instead of saying but, use constructive collaborative language. For example, I like your presentation. What if we added more data to the slide? Or maybe we can add this, or maybe we can try this. Perhaps we can do that. I think this has been kind of something that I have continuously been using, and I've seen effectiveness out of it. Do you do something like that for your side?
Yeah, but my struggle with this is how much of it is like I say it in so casual a manner, or I'm trying to be so light about it that it doesn't land.
So previously, I've had this conversation with people as well at work, and if it doesn't land well, what I tend to do is I will create, for example, if this is a presentation slide, I will create a version of it, and then I will very draft. Obviously, I don't want to do the job for them, so I'll do like a very high level draft of it, and I'll be like, oh, how about something like this? I think like this may land a little better because of ABC reasons. And then I kind of remind them who the audience is and why this might be effective. So I think like that has helped. Because one thing that I tend to do at work is when someone doesn't do something to the level that I expect it to be, I kind of go and overdo it, or like
you redo their work.
Exactly. And that defeats the purpose of me like being a program manager and delegating and helping move things forward.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I'm guilty of this too, where I'm like, oh, I have to give feedback, and then I have to see how they receive it, and then I have to, like, that's a whole process. I don't just do the job and then they never do it, which is also an issue.
Right. Yeah. So that's one of the things I'm learning too.
Yeah, because this person's never going to change if you keep doing it.
Exactly. And then one of the things about work is that you should keep it private, right, and direct. Like, don't deliver critical feedback in a room full of people or on a call where other team members are there. I think it's good to do it in one-on-ones to avoid like embarrassments, because I think that's a thing. You don't want people to feel like they're beneath you, and it's not to say that I'm like superior to them. It's just because as a program manager, you kind of understand what the audience is looking for, and so that's where we provide value.
Yeah. Another thing about one-on-one relationship building is a lot of people I work with are not in my same location. So I work in the West Coast. A lot of these folks that I work with are on the East Coast, or they're even globally spread. So it's really hard. It's easy to send out a Slack message saying, hey, this was a thing, this is how you behaved. Right. This was the impact, and it's easy to send that out, but you don't know what their day has been like. You don't know what's happening in their life.
Yes,
you don't know how it's going to be.
Right.
Yeah, and so it's easy to do it. Right. To just do your job, like, oh, I've given feedback. Right. But I think it's important that in a remote environment where everyone's so different, their experiences are so different, their backgrounds are so different, to think about how it's being received. Right. And so I think that's a learning for me, especially in the workplace, is that tone doesn't come across through text or through email, and so sometimes a conversation is helpful. And so I think that's when the one-on-one bit is also valuable.
For sure. I think one of the things, it's funny because when I first joined the workforce here, I was just like, why are people doing one-on-ones? Like, there's just so much to get done. How are these people having time to do one-on-ones? And I didn't understand until now. I honestly, like, one-on-ones have been the best way for me to cultivate relationships with my team members.
Yeah.
I think that I have this very collaborative dynamic with my team because I would say for the one-on-ones, and you have this relationship with them. Otherwise, just through text, like you said, tone does not come across, and also like it just feels a little bit more transactive when you don't have a relationship with them. Yeah, for sure. And then just wrapping up for the work settings, other actions is like focusing on future actions or giving clear next steps on how they can improve for next time. And I think this should be done in a way of encouragement rather than being like, hey, do this.
Yeah. You know? It's the thing that you mentioned about how if you have a relationship with someone where you give them positive feedback too, when you give them the negative feedback, it's not taken badly. Exactly. But if you're only giving negative feedback, they're going to be like, this person's never happy.
Right. Exactly. For platonic relationship, I think the focus should mainly be on mutual respect, trust, and ensuring the feedback is truly necessary. I agree.
I fully agree with this.
Yeah.
I think picking your battles is very important.
For
with
sure,
people, yeah.
especially in a platonic relationship. I don't think you're close enough as in a relationship, like you're dating this person, to be giving all the feedback that you feel like they need. I feel like there's a difference. The delta between like platonic and your relationship is that in your relationship, I think there's a lot of feedback that needs to be given back and forth because you're choosing a life with this person, right? It's a day to day. There's going to be a lot more feedback as opposed to your friendship that you have with someone that you maybe see like at most once a week or like, you know, once a month. You know, you don't need to be giving feedback on like the smallest things.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Again, private delivery for platonic relationships, and then focus on behavior, not character. I think often, you know, people get this intertwined. So focusing on behavior might look like that comment really hurt my feelings rather than you are insensitive. I think it's very easy to conflate the two.
I think it's very easy to conflate the two. And sometimes your inner monologue has already put this person in a particular bucket. So I can see how when you're like in the heat of the moment that comes out.
Yep, for sure. And then again, check your intention, asking if this is for their improvement or to fix your annoyance or how you were feeling when they gave you that feedback. And then obviously active listening.
I think with platonic, it's not just about the behavior in a certain moment. It's also like what you want from them going forward. Right. What sort of friend are they going to be to you?
Right. If you really do value that friendship and you do think whatever they said to you or did to you really impacts the way you interact with them as friends, then, you know, it's valuable giving that feedback. Yeah. Just depends on how much you value that friendship, I suppose.
Yeah. Or how much you're like willing to, I don't know. For me, it's been not just like, yes, I value a friendship, but sometimes I've also been like, I've made my peace with that this person can't behave in a certain way.
Yeah. I mean, but also give them that opportunity to show you, you know. And then finally, romantic relationships, the focus should be on safety, emotional security, and strengthening the bond. So I statements such as focusing on your feelings rather than blaming. Example, I feel overwhelmed. I feel hurt when, etc., etc. And then the appreciation sandwich, which is different to the sandwich.
The sandwich.
Exactly. The appreciation sandwich is combining positive affirmations with constructive feedback. So I appreciate how patient you are, and I would love it if we could also A, B, and C. So kind of just sliding in. It's more like so an encouragement rather than just giving direct feedback.
Yeah.
Yep. And then obviously picking your timing and be specific and gentle. Yeah. I think like this overall going back to the SBI framework is really helpful. So the situation, behavior, impact. I think that helps remove all like subjective feelings from the feedback that you're giving, which I think is always helpful because that helps the person see things more objectively.
Yeah, I think that's my main issue is that even for receiving feedback, I sometimes lose objectivity.
Yes, yeah,
and
for sure.
That's why the defensiveness or like
for sure.
Bit.
Yeah, especially when someone's like emotions, the way the tone, the way they approach giving the feedback, that really impacts. Yeah, it's a learning experience. But yeah, generally good practices include like active listening, non-verbal cues also matter. So like how you react or how your facial expressions are when you're giving that feedback also matters a lot. And then also focus on action, so describing what the person did instead of who they are. So this was the research that we did.
we be struggling
So this is a journey that we're going on also. Hopefully you guys also gain something from our little research. We kind of just summarize for everyone. I think like these are really good feedbacks, especially like the SBI. It's really often difficult, I think, to be objective, especially when a lot of giving feedback comes from how you felt.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I've been in situations where someone has been annoying me so much, but then if I think of the SBI, I mean, maybe I may not have said, oh, what's the SBI framework?
Right.
But I'm like, I need to give this person examples.
Right.
And I haven't been able to come up with examples. So then it's like,
you realize
that this person is not actually, like if you're not able to give concrete examples to a person, then you shouldn't probably be giving feedback to a person.
Because it's probably the intention is probably not that they're doing something that they can improve on, but maybe just something that impacted you that day that was causing.
Exactly.
Right.
Or they're just annoying.
Yeah, but it's good that, you have that self-awareness. So a lot of this, honestly, has to do with self-awareness and you realizing that, giving feedback requires a lot more emotional intelligence and consideration for other people's feelings.
Yeah. I've never been in one, like a professional development meeting or conversation where someone has not, if feedback is said, the phrase feedback is a gift is at some point said.
Yes.
And it is true.
It's true. And I like that. Feedback is a gift, you know, and the receiving person should also remember this, you know. Yeah, I think this has been a helpful discussion, honestly.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be an ongoing one, this phase of our life.
Exactly. So this is actually good because now that we've recorded this, I can also just come back to listening to our little conversation. And, you know, if I do feel like I need some guidance, this is a good reference.
This is why we started this podcast.
Honestly, yeah.
It's like a digital diary.
For real. And also, you know, building a community so that we can discuss together. So if you have any good tips, pro tips, you know, on how you handled a conflict, or not conflict, but given feedback in a good way and people have received it well, please let us know because
we need it.
We need it. Yeah. With that being said, I think we'll wrap up here for today.
Doodles.
See ya.